The Car Dealer podcast is sponsored by Autotrader. John, have you ever wondered why I, along with 14,000 other dealers, choose to partner with Autotrader?
Well, actually,
I didn't think so. I'll tell you anyway. With more than 84 million consumer visits every month, it connects us with more engaged car buyers and delivers more deals than anyone else in the UK. And now, with the launch of Buying Signals, we'll have brand new insights on every deal, showing how likely a customer is to buy the car they're interested in. Plus, as someone who set out to use AI and data as much as possible in my business, I've found their technology, data and tools genuinely invaluable. But when I do get stuck,
which is, let's face it, most of the time,
Autotrader is always on hand and committed to supporting us to get the very best from our package. To find out how they can help you, visit trade.autotrader.co.uk.
Welcome back to the Car Dealer podcast, where we pick our favourite stories of the week and ask an industry guest to choose which were the best. I'm John Ray, and would you believe me, joining me is James Backett. James, nice to see you.
These introductions sound like I need a holiday, John. You're getting ever more disappointed to see me every week, aren't you?
Is that showing through?
Yeah, it sort of is, yeah. Oh dear, how are you, John? Lovely to see you.
I'm very well. Yeah, lovely to see you as well. Yes, it's all, I'm sure everyone's bored of us talking about it, but it's all the run up to our big event, isn't it? In less than 2 weeks' time.
Yeah.
Is what's stressing me out at the minute. I don't know about you.
Definitely
You've got
is.
the stress of, exploding Nissan Qashqais and various other things to worry about.
But also, writing the script for Car Dealer Live coming up on March the 19th. It's funny, isn't it? The motor trade seems to operate in the same way every year. They always buy the tickets at the very last minute. So the last 2 weeks before the event, it goes absolutely crazy. It's filling up very nicely. So we've added another headline speaker this week. I did think, John, it's probably just worth touching on that because we had Ginny Buckley on the podcast last week from Electrify, and she was brilliant, wasn't she? Mm. And off the back of that, we invited to come along as a headline speaker, but you did not once comment during that podcast about how I'd kept it together about my comments on electric cars for the entire podcast.
Well, I suppose you were quite restrained. I didn't really notice at the time. You were on your best behaviour, really, weren't you?
I really was, wasn't I? Yeah, I really was. But yeah, she's going to be coming along to Car Dealer Live, and we're going to be discussing exactly that. So maybe I'll put my opinions forward at that point in time. I'm looking forward to her joining the headline lineup at Car Dealer Live. Yeah, tickets are available. cardealerlive.co.uk. So yeah, that is dominating. That's been dominating my week, and it will do for the next couple of weeks. The dealership's been very interesting this week, though. John, do you want to hear what's been going on there?
Well, your employee has returned from his holiday, so
he has.
I assume that helps.
That has certainly helped. We've also bought back more cars than we've sold, which is always a good thing, isn't it? I mean, what a joy. So, we bought back a white Jimny that we sold a couple of weeks back because I just think she didn't like it very much. And she was very moany, sent us a very angry letter, and I just thought it's probably best just to give her her money back. So we did that, and then we sold a Mercedes that we had in part exchange, sort of with the hope that we might not hear from them ever again. But we sold it very, very cheap. But we did hear from them again, and we gave him his money back. So that's off to the scrap man, the big scrap heap in the sky. Very sad.
Was that the lovely CLK that you thought would go on for another 100,000 miles?
It was, yeah, it was. But the other thing I just wanted to talk about, John, just quickly before we introduce our guest, is I did something that I didn't think I'd ever do this week, and that was I signed up. So I buy a car? Sorry?
Sell a car, is it?
Sell a car, yeah. I mean, that would be nice. No, I signed up to a stocking loan provider. Now, we've signed up with Next Gear, and there'll be lots of people listening to this podcast who are probably thinking a number of things. I'll let them send me direct messages on LinkedIn and WhatsApp with their actual real thoughts about it. But the reason we've done it is they've partnered with CarWow. Next week, we're going to be doing one of our Battle of the Buyers videos, which I'm very excited about, where other people spend my money. But actually, they're not going to be spending my money for the first 60 to 90 days. They'll actually be spending Next Gear's money. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that actually works, John. I mean, it's a big step. It's like putting on my big boy trousers and being a proper dealer. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. I don't know how much we'll use it going forward, but it's a little bit nerve-wracking at the same time, if I'm honest.
What I'm going to take from that, James, is that you've realised this video is coming up, and you've also realised you don't have enough money in the company bank account to pay for any of the cars that
John,
the likes of
I
James
mean,
are going to buy for you.
you should be a KC because you've seen through me very, very, very well.
Well, on that note, I'm going to introduce our guests because we're nearly halfway through now.
Yes.
So we've got two guests this week. This is a bit of a change for us. So our first guest is Managing Director of Celtic, Subaru and KGM and Mitsubishi Approved Repair as well, Tony Sciascia. Tony, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to see you, Tony. Thank you for joining us.
Lovely to see you, and nice to have a fellow Subaru aficionado on the podcast, obviously. And we're also joined by Head of Strategy and Insights at Autotrader, Marc Palmer. Marc, lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too. Thanks for having me back.
Nice to see you, Marc. We'll come to you very shortly. We're going to be talking about the market, aren't we? And what's been happening with the new plate change, which started this week. So we'll come to you in 20 minutes or so. But Tony, let's have a chat first. I mean, thank you for joining us on the podcast. Very, very welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. Tell those people listening a little bit about your business then.
Okay. So we are a small multi-franchise car dealer in Swansea. We were a Mitsubishi dealer for 25 years. Of course, Mitsubishi then pulled out of the market in 2021. So we had to reinvent ourselves as a business because all our eggs were in that one basket at the time. And we kind of reinvented ourselves as an independent franchised retailer, focusing predominantly on used cars, growing that business. And at the same time, then Subaru came along and asked, if we would get into bed with them, which we did. But Subaru is obviously quite niche, but it kind of fitted, with our database, our type of customer. And we've carried on like that for a number of years, and it's worked really, really well. But then typically everything happens at once. Last year, we had three brands approach us asking if we were interested in talking to them. One of which was KGM, and KGM kind of seemed to have the same kind of philosophy as us. They're quite easy to deal with. They're very laid back. They like to have fun with the brand, and they've got a great range. So it just seemed to work for us to take that on. And we've been doing that now for a year as well. So 5 years on from Mitsubishi leaving, now we've got three brands because Mitsubishi are coming back in the summer as well. So it's from feast to famine to feast again, perhaps. But we are focusing a lot on our used car business. That's the area that can make us money, will make us money. New car market is so volatile, it's so challenging with all the Chinese entrants as well. So we stick into what we know works for us. But the brands are a welcome addition as well because it really does help our after sales business, in terms of vehicle retention and servicing and all the rest of it. So that's little old us really, the wrong end of the M4 in Swansea, but we do punch above our weight, I think, and we're okay. Yeah, as a small business, we're doing okay.
Tony, tell me a little bit then about your thoughts about Mitsubishi coming back then. I mean, we've talked about it on the podcast a few times. I'm a brand that's got a very loyal following. Whenever we have one in stock, I was saying last week on the podcast, it always flies out the door. They seem to still be very popular. What are your thoughts on it? And are you signing up with them again?
Yes. So they haven't officially announced anything just yet. But yeah, we are going to be signing up with them. It's actually quite refreshing what they do, and they've taken a very pragmatic approach because they ease in their way back into the market. They're not coming in all guns blazing. They said they're going to come in with two models, which is the L200 pickup, the latest Series 7 generation, and the Outlander PHEV, which was very, very popular when it originally launched back in 2014. And they're going to ease into the market, and they're going to see how it feels and how it develops and then grow from there again. So we're hopeful that it will grow and they'll start introducing the other models. I think they are, from what I can gather, reluctant to introduce the rebadged French Renault cars. They just want to solely focus on the Japanese-built Mitsubishis, so we'll see what happens. But for me, it's great because we've got a quite a large, loyal Mitsubishi database. They're itching to have Mitsubishis again. It's going to help my park. It's going to help my after sales. It won't be easy because the pickup market is finding it tough right now, and 50% of their product is pickup. So it's going to be it's not going to be an easy ride, but we're hopeful that it will do well. It's many of the original people behind the scenes are still there, and they're all good people, we know, and I'm quite convinced that they'll do a good job. So fingers crossed.
Were you quite shocked when they announced that they were coming back?
No, I wasn't. We knew it was always on the cards. It was a horrendous blunder. I don't know who made the decision to pull out of Europe, but we knew it was always going to come back. What we didn't know is how long it was going to take, and the longer it took, the harder obviously it was going to be. But Mitsubishi are now the official importer in the UK is IM Group, who obviously still also look after Subaru. So we have a relationship with them already. I know they've been talking to Mitsubishi for some time because they've been keen to get it back in. The after-sales business has remained particularly strong, really, because I thought that would last a year or two and then fall off a cliff, but it hasn't. So customers are holding on to their Mitsubishis. They want to keep them. And we still sell a lot of used Mitsubishis. So, so it's worked well. So, yeah, so for me, it hasn't been a surprise it's coming back. The surprise was how long it took, actually. So I was hoping it would have been back within 2 years at the most.
Yeah, I'm certainly. I was sort of surprised when it came back. I actually thought it would have been gone for good, but clearly you were a lot closer to the brand than I was. There was a lot of choice, though, isn't there now among in the car park out there? There are huge number of brands coming in every day. How do you think Mitsubishi is going to stack up against, especially these new Chinese rivals?
Yeah, well, it will affect all brands. The cake isn't getting any bigger, really. And there are a lot more entrants wanting a slice of it. So I suppose from my point of view, with all my brands, Mitsubishi, Subaru and KGM, we are going to be less affected than the mainstream brands because we are niche. So there's less of a chunk to take out of those brands than there are if you are more volume, shall we say. So I'd be more worried if I was MG or Kia or Hyundai, one of those brands. But yeah, it is a challenge because it's just such a noisy market, and to get your voice heard, you need to be clever, you need to be creative with your marketing, and you need to have big budgets. And we'll wait to see what kind of budget Mitsubishi will have. But I think we'll be okay because there's enough of a database out there that we can call on.
It's always nice to have a fellow dealer on the podcast because it's nice to bounce just about how the start of the year has been. Is it just me that's been feeling it's okay? I mean, how's it been for you? I mean, to be honest, it feels pretty positive at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's really important to get off to a good start. I feel it's like using a football analogy. You want to win your first 3 games of the season, don't you? And so January is always a really big month for us, and we were okay. We had a good January, which set us up, and February was pretty good as well. So we're quite happy with our start, but it's never easy. It's just every month is a challenge. I mean, I've been saying it all my life. 4 decades in now. I've never known an easy period within motor trade myself. So it's always a challenge, but all we can do is take 1 month at a time, hopefully have a good month. If it's bad, put it behind us, move on, try and make it better the following month.
And what about used cars? How are they going for you?
So used cars is predominantly what's keeping me going at the moment. That's been pretty good. New cars, we've been doing okay, but we've not been setting any records, that's for sure. It is difficult. But used cars is what's paying our wages and paying the bills. That's doing pretty good. And after sales has been quite busy as well, which is encouraging. Because there's a lot of competition out there for that too.
Yeah, certainly is. And you're involved in the IMDA, aren't you, as well?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so they approached me a couple of years ago to see if I was interested to help out. I don't think they had any representation in Wales. They they probably asked a lot of people who weren't able to do it, so they ended up asking me. And yeah, it's been really good. It's been quite insightful because I've got to know a lot of new people, some really interesting characters, some really knowledgeable people out there who are predominantly from the independent world, which I've never really got to know that well. Most of my contacts are in franchise dealer network, shall we say. So I've got to know a lot of new people. I've learned so much from them as well. And the IMDA, I mean, it's a fantastic organization. I just don't know why absolutely everybody hasn't signed up to it, because it's free. So it costs nothing, and there are a lot of benefits, and the more members within the IMDA, then the bigger the voice and the more influential, hopefully, the IMDA can be. But it's great.
Sorry, am I right in thinking you're on the committee?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're in those committee meetings, I mean, what's on the IMDA's mind at the moment? What's bothering the independent motor dealers?
So oh gosh, well, the one over the last few months, the big one has been the Autotrader changes. Of course, there's been a lot of noise about that, and the IMDA, we've tried to engage. So we're trying to represent our members and engage with Autotrader and express, the views of our members. But in a constructive way. It's no good being shouty and throwing toys out. You've got to talk to these people and put your points of view across and engage and hopefully then come to some solutions that everybody's comfortable with. And that's what we've been trying to do behind the scenes constantly.
And what's your take on it, Tony? What's your take on the the Autotrader?
Sorry, Mark.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so my view is that Autotrader is the best tool on the market for what it does. I don't think there's any doubt about that. My concern is that I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between Autotrader and its customers. And when I say its customers, I mean us, the dealers. We are the ones who advertise predominantly. And I would like to see Autotrader engage far more with its customers and have a flexible approach. Pricing is a huge issue, and Autotrader will say, well, yeah, we build value into our pricing by adding all these additional products, which is great, but they should be optional as opposed to mandatory. And, when we sell a car, we sell a car and then we sell add-ons, don't we? Whatever it is, paint protection, service plan, or whatever. I think Autotrader would be better served having a similar model where they sell you a package where we all subscribe to and we're happy with. And then if any of us want to use their additional tools and services, then we can subscribe to that and pay a bit more, because not everybody wants it. So I think, that's my view on it. There isn't a great viable alternative for me out there. But there may be in the future, and I think Autotrader would be best served by thinking about that, for the future. But as a product, it is excellent, and it, it helps us sell cars. And I think, a lot of people who are searching on the internet will at some point look at Autotrader, and that's because they're good at what they do. So, that's my personal view.
Where do Tony, where do the majority of leads come from for your business?
We do. I don't know if there's a full majority with anybody. So we get quite a spread. Autotrader is quite a lot. Our own website now is building up nicely, and social media. We're very, very active on social media. We try and be different. We try and inject a bit of humor. We don't want to always just advertise a car and that's it. We try and just take different angles. So social media quite a lot, Autotrader quite a lot, our own website quite a lot, but also word of mouth. We've got a pretty good reputation, I would like to think, in our area. We've got a lot of repeat business, and that helps as well.
Mark, I'll let you come back on Tony's points in a moment when I come to you. I don't want to think I'm not going to give you the right reply on those, but we'll do that when we have a chat in the moment. But Tony, I just wanted to ask about sourcing. I mean, that is a big challenge at the moment, isn't it? I mean, getting hold of good quality stock is very, very difficult. You're focusing on used cars as well. How do you do it?
It's a real problem. So when we were a Mitsubishi dealer up until 2020, 80% of my used stock were part exchanges. I was only able to source about 20%. It's flipped the other way now. 80% of my stock I have to go and find and buy. So it is a huge challenge. Luckily, I've got a fantastic business partner. My sales director is a great buyer, and he spends a lot of time, and so we do buy quite well. But it is a difficulty for everybody. I mean, prices are through the roof, and how some people pay what they pay and actually make a margin, I don't know, but they obviously do. And we have to follow suit. We know what sells for us, and we tend to buy the cars that suit our demographic and our profile. We're not mainstream, so we don't go buying all the same old volume cars. We try and buy things that are a little bit different. So that's where Autotrader works for us as well, because of course people from outside our area will see a particular car that they want and they'll travel to Swansea to buy it. So that's why for me personally, Autotrader does work.
Tony, how did you get into this business?
Luck, chance. I finished school. I was reasonably academic in school, but I was bored of it. I needed to get out of the classroom. So my view was to go to college and learn some sort of trade or skill. And during the summer holiday, when I needed to earn some money, I joined a YTS scheme. So back in the day, for people who perhaps young enough not to know this, I joined a YTS scheme, which was a training scheme. It was like an apprenticeship on the cheap, £25 per week. And I went into a commercial vehicle dealership into the parts department as a stores boy. And I didn't leave, basically. They were very good to me. They started paying me a little extra because I worked hard. I had a good work ethic. I turned up every morning. And I just followed the career as it took me. And I ended up from parts going into service, after sales, became a director. And then the business I'm in now was a family-owned business. I became a director of that business. The owner wanted to sell up. The MD came to me and said, look, why don't we take it on? So we took on the Mitsubishi franchise, took on the business. That was in 2010, in the middle of the financial crisis. And we said to ourselves, well, if we can make money this year, we'll make money every year. And we did. We made a profit in our first year, and we carried on from there. A couple of years later, my partner said, look, take on the MD role. It needs a new, fresh approach. And that was my full, proper introduction into car sales. So all my career up until that point had been after sales. So even though I was involved because I was a director, I never really sold cars. I had an idea, but I didn't know the nitty-gritty of the business. So it was quite a steep learning curve, but I had him to hold my hand for a couple of years. And that's what we did, and we grew. We were able to grow just because I think I took a different approach. I was able to look at it from a completely fresh perspective. And then in 2021, I bought the business basically outright, and we've continued from there. As we were restructuring, it just made sense for me to do it all myself.
What do you enjoy the most about working in the motor trade?
Obviously, when you sell a car, it's a buzz. Always. I mean, we're at a size now where there's about 20 of us working here, where I've got a team in sales. Every time they sell a car, we don't have a bell to ring or anything like that. But it's great when they tell me. They know that it turns me on. But I like the marketing side. That's kind of the area I've gone into a little bit now, because it takes so much time, and it's a kind of thing you can do 24/7. So I'll be sat at home, my wife's watching Coronation Street or whatever she's doing, and I'm on the phone and, putting together a little video or an advert or whatever. So I enjoy the marketing side. And that's kind of where I'm at, half the time now.
And Tony, just to finish, where do you think the biggest opportunities are for dealers this year?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know if it's a big opportunity. I think it's always about, doing the basics right. You've got to source your stock. You've got to have a little bit of a crystal ball and take some chances sometimes, because you don't know what the market's going to do next week or the week after. And you've got to control your costs. That's the key to it. If you run a tight ship, you can ride the storms. When we have those quiet weeks or quiet months, it won't hurt you so much if you run a tight ship. If you spend in here, there, and everywhere, then you start feeling it then during the quiet months. So for me, I don't know if there's a specific opportunity. I think it's always about just doing the basics properly.
Yeah, sage advice, Tony. Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us and sticking around for the stories. But Mark, you've been sitting there silently in the background. I could see you wanted to jump in a couple of times. I mean, firstly, just to Tony's point there, about Autotrader listening. I mean, not that I want this to be an ambush in any way, shape, or form, but I should be giving you a right to reply. What would you like to say to Tony?
Yeah, no, those are fair points, and you've had numerous guests on from Autotrader. I'm sure, Tony, you've spoken to people from Autotrader as well, and your colleagues on the IMD will have also done the same thing. So I don't want to retread the kind of things that we've spoken about and we've been through and so on and so forth. Just a kind of a point on that the main thing you talked about, the main kind of thing that one of the things you talked about, Tony, there was listening and being closer and not being disconnected from customers. And we've worked hard, definitely over the last couple of months, to establish customer advisory groups, which is a forum for retailers of all types to meet with people from Autotrader and just talk about what they want to talk about. We don't set the agenda for those. There are things that we want to share, ideas that we want to put in front of customers and ask them, do you think about this, or do you think this would work, and so on and so forth. That's about as far as the agenda goes from our perspective. The main thing of those really is to sort of sit and listen and find out what's going on and what retailers are feeling. So that there are lots of other bits and pieces we could talk about if it was one of those kind of discussions, absolutely. But I can completely take the point, Tony. You absolutely valid points that you've made, and we are working hard to try to do that. And probably just one other thing I'll add, it's all very well kind of sitting and listening and all that kind of stuff, but doing something is probably, that's what you really want to see, isn't it? And there have been changes made to the platform, to product pages, and there'll be more things coming which will kind of hopefully help retailers get to where they want to be and help us move forward. So really well established, and you can find out who the members of those committees and things are. You just Google it. But anyway, so really well established now, and I think the next one might be next week. Customer advisory groups, and then there are things happening where retailers come into the room and say, "Look, we're not happy about this. We'd like to see that thing change. We don't know that that's necessarily working." The product teams have gone away and looked at it, and there have been changes made. So it's early days, absolutely, but hopefully we're moving forward in the right kind of way.
Mark, appreciate that. I'll let you off the hook. Let's talk about the market. We're obviously in the March plate change, aren't we? Now there's been some from what we're seeing. It's very positive. I mean, is that just me getting the feeling, or is that actually what's happening?
I think it is. It depends, doesn't it? Tony's made the right, all the right point. I'm risky of repeating stuff that Tony said. It depends what brands you've got, doesn't it? To a degree. I mean, at top level, at the end of February. I mean, February's a funny old month, in that. We've had March is quite chunky. March is massive. January's quite chunky. February sort of sits in the middle, doesn't it? But the year-to-date picture, market's up 5%. Retail's actually ahead, which is sort of, the first time that's happened for a bit. So it points to a solid market in March. I'd imagine there'll be people sitting there waiting for the phone to start ringing from their brand sales director. A couple of weeks, where are we? It's the 6th of March. I'd probably give it another week or two. It depends on what the order take is looking like. But yeah, you'd be quite optimistic, I think, in terms of volume. That's quite positive. A couple of interesting things maybe to point out as where we are at this point of the year. The Chinese brands in the months of Jan and Feb combined have got a share of 13.5%, which is double what it was last year. So then there's this swell of stuff going on. Interested to see how they do in March, and what the response has been, or what the response is from the other brands. So there's a thing there. Electric cars is always the other story in the new car market, isn't it? Year to date, their share sits at 22%, volumes up just over 1%. So there's quite a way to go before we get to that target. So those are always the two themes that we're asked about on new. Good news for you, Tony. Plug-in hybrid volume is up nearly 50% year on year. So, and they count towards the ZEV targets, of course. So you can see that there's been a bit of a switch around in what goes into the market. So feels like Mitsubishi might be coming in with a good product and Outlander at the right time, because that will carry on through this year. So yeah, Q1 seems to be shaping up pretty well. It depends on the brand mix, but it seems to be, new car seems to be, there are reasons to be fairly optimistic, depending on the brand, of course, and where you are.
Yeah, I think we'll probably come on to some of those new car figures in our stories, because obviously we've had February's numbers this week. They were absolutely fascinating. I've looked at them in detail, and especially those Chinese brands you mentioned. I mean, they're really going great guns. What about used though, Mark? I mean, you've mentioned in a recent chat with Batch, didn't you, that there's this sort of looming supply of shortage of stock in some areas of the used car market. Tony and I have touched on it, and probably both of us have certainly felt it when we're trying to buy stock. What's the reality?
It's just as you described. It's just a fact that when fewer new cars are registered some time ago, then that a few years later there are fewer used cars of those ages, aren't there? And we said it'd be sort of 5, 6, and 7-year-old cars this year. It's their turn as that gap moves through the park, and we're already seeing that supply is there is down. I think the thing is that we're already starting to see that retailers are really adaptable. I was in a room last week with a number of NFDA members actually, and the host of the meeting kind of went around the room and said, what's the thing that's facing you? And they all talked about supply and the fear of buying the wrong cars and having the right cars, which is the kind of thing I think that Tony was referring to. So that is definitely bearing out in the market. We're seeing it in the data. There's lower supply of those sorts of cars. At the younger end of the market, supply is coming back, so there's a bit more choice there. The thing is, it's really different to what it used to be. Brands are different, fuel types are different, so there's a bit of an opportunity there. And then at the other end, this is where the strength is. Cars aged 10 plus are going really, really well. Prices are up year on year 11%. The average price of a car is over £7,000. This time last year it was only £6,300. So there's a great opportunity in older cars. So if and you're seeing retailers sort of pick up those and diversify. It's interesting. Yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, Virtue published some numbers and have introduced a plan to sell 7 to 14-year-old cars. So
I was fascinated by that. I mean, that is a big change, isn't it?
Huge change, yeah. But like that for some time, that's going to be where the supply is. So it kind of makes sense. And I guess the challenge there is, how do you make sure you get the right ones? To kind of work through prep costs, and have you got the right market and that sort of thing. And actually, just to come back to the auto trader bit, hopefully tools like ours, the ones that retailers have got access to, can help them make those kinds of decisions. What's the right car for my market at the moment, especially if it's in an age cohort or a fuel type that you might not have sold before. So there is definitely opportunity, I would say. You've just got to really, more than ever, really, I suppose we say this quite a lot, you'd expect me to say it, really just pay attention to getting the right cars in, and the insights are there to help do that.
And then what about used electric? I mean, we talked about this at length on the podcast last week with Ginny. I mean, it's something that's quite close to my heart, actually, because we've been trying quite a few ourselves. I mean, we've got 3 of them in stock at the moment. They always sell pretty quickly for us when they're
close to your heart, James.
Well, it is when I come to sell them, John.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, I'm not going to say I like them. I like the fact that they sell quickly. So we've got a couple of Nissan Leafs in stock at the moment. We've got an e-Golf. They always seem to be popular. But there's a lot of dealers out there who just won't touch them. I mean, why do you think that is, Mark?
Probably, it's interesting when you say that they sell really quickly, but you don't like them. That's that fear.
I wouldn't own one. Let's put it that way.
It's the fear of getting it wrong, I think. So I was, I mentioned I was in a room with some NFDA members last week. The day before that, I was actually in a room with some members of the IMDA on a different conversation, and we were talking in that. The purpose of that meeting was a separate kind of host, organizer, and they were talking about used electric cars. Independent retailers talking about used electric cars. And what they were saying was, they'd sold them, and they'd had varying levels of success, or they had or hadn't been able to make profit on those cars. And they said the same kind of thing. They know, they know that the supply is going to be an increasing part of what's available. Electric is going to be an increasing part of what they can buy in over now and the future years. And we are seeing, an increase in independent retailers stocking them. We're now at about 21% of retailers on our platform that have sold one, which is up from where it was at this time last year by quite a lot. So more and more retailers are starting to do it. And we've talked, those cars do move quickly. Pricing is pretty stable. So, and when I say quickly, they're selling in kind of 26, 27 days, which is faster on average than the market, which is about 30 days. So pricing's trending the right way. There's value in the market, but it is very much about, which cars are going to sell and do what you need them to do. I think what came out of listening to the retailers last week, the independent retailers, was thinking about what is going to happen with the cost of that car, buying the right one in, and is it one of those ones that is going to move in 26 days, or is it going to take 60? Because if it's 60, obviously, then I've got a bit of a challenge. So thinking about the tools available is really important there. The other thing, which is really key, and this is probably where you might come in, is prep costs are potentially different. Where can I get the prep done? Where are there specialists near me? Especially if you're in a more of a remote area, there might not be specialist retailers that can handle software updates or to make changes that you need to be made to the car to get the car prepped properly. So that, retailers are not sure what to do about that. They've always got a partner for a petrol or a diesel car that can, get a car right for them. But if they don't have the tools on site, how do I do that? That's the thing. Is that something that you've
absolutely hit the nail on the head there, Mark? Because we've got, just as an example, we've got an e-Golf that we had to buy back, a car that had a problem with the charger. Absolutely fine. I've been running it for the last 3 weeks at home to test it. It charges absolutely fine at home. As soon as you plug it into a fast charger, won't work. The problem I have is nobody we use for our prep, our mechanics, they don't really know how to fix it. It's one of those things that is a specialist problem. And at that point in time, specialist problem means very expensive bills. So this is the issue. With the petrol and diesel, like, you can solve most problems. With electric, something like that, it does get difficult.
Yeah, that is absolutely something that came through last week. And where are those specialists? Some people have got those specialists, some people don't. And we're in a really early period, aren't we? I don't want to get too, but it is needed. People need to get their arms around it. It's a good opportunity for the IMDA, for example. Where are these specialists? Almost like Checkatrade or something like that, isn't it?
Yes.
Who can help us at the moment to help retailers? Because at the moment, all we've said to retailers about used electric, we go on about it quite a lot because we just think retailers, it's useful to have a plan, given that that's going to be what supplies. Your plan might be to never sell an electric car because you're going to sell the business in 5 years. That's absolutely fine. Your plan might be, no, I want to make a big thing out of this. How do I do it? And that's all the kind of advice we've ever had is the cars are coming, have a plan and here are the facts that we can help you with. So that was the thing anyway. And I think there are some things missing in there. There's information about batteries and degradation and all that sort of stuff. I think there's never been any bad news about battery degradation. The more and more information that comes out says that you can trust the battery. So we, and that again, more of that news needs to come out to independent retailers. But for sure, from the taking, what I don't want to do is put a lot of problems in the way. Lots of retailers are having quite a bit of success with the cars, moving quite quickly, pricing stable, there's value in the market. It's just those extra questions. How do I prep it? Can I be absolutely sure? And is this the right car for the local market? I think those are the things probably that retailers want to be getting past if they can, to start to understand that, it's a good, viable proposition for them.
Mark, just in a nutshell, in the last minute that we've got, give us an idea of what the rest of 2026 is going to look like from your opinion.
Completely with Tony there. He talked about getting the basics right. That's absolutely, I think, where we are. That there is supply in the market. There is good demand in the market. Choosing the right cars. We heard some franchise retailers saying, I'm worried about buying the wrong cars. So choosing the right cars and maximising the margin in them sounds like such a basic thing, but that is the market. That's the market I think that we're in, isn't it? And it's good to hear Tony say the same thing. We haven't got a 2020, 2022 scenario. The volatility's gone. Things have settled down. So it feels like a real opportunity to go, right, what do we need to do to make sure that we max out the margin in every car?
Mark, very much appreciate you coming on. Thank you for joining us also. But, John, we should probably, 40 minutes in, do some stories.
We'll be right back. Running a dealership means making hundreds of decisions every day. But, James, when do you get the time to step back and think?
Well, John, I don't. But this is exactly what Car Dealer Live is for. On March the 19th, at the British Motor Museum in Gaydon, the UK's car dealers, manufacturers and suppliers will come together to learn what's actually working right now. You'll hear from dealers who've built great businesses and exclusive research from headline sponsors Autotrader, as well as Google, Motorway, Cox Automotive, Keyloop and Impel. We'll be tackling the big questions like how buyers are really using AI, what Chinese challenger brands mean for your forecourt, and how the best dealers are growing faster than anyone else.
Maybe you'll actually learn something, James.
Bit rude, John, but you're probably right. Car Dealer Live is sponsored by Autotrader and takes place on March the 19th at the British Motor Museum. Tickets are available now at cardealerlive.co.uk. Now, a quick word from one of our sponsors.
Attention Car Dealer podcast listeners. Do you want a better, quicker, more profitable way of trading out of your part exchanges or overage stock? List your cars on Dealerway today and connect with over 3,000 vetted trade buyers actively looking for vehicles. No hidden fees, no hassle. Start your own custom auctions from your desk or the palm of your hand in our game-changing app, or advertise your stock on quick, easy, buy it now listings to our eager buyers who are waiting to quickly acquire vehicles. What are you waiting for? Join Dealerway today at dealerway.co.uk and streamline your disposals.
John, have you ever wondered why I, along with 14,000 other dealers, choose to partner with Autotrader?
Well, actually,
I didn't think so. I'll tell you anyway. With more than 84 million consumer visits every month, it connects us with more engaged car buyers and delivers more deals than anyone else in the UK. And now, with the launch of Buying Signals, we'll have brand new insights on every deal, showing how likely a customer is to buy the car they're interested in. Plus, as someone who set out to use AI and data as much as possible in my business, I've found their technology, data and tools genuinely invaluable. But when I do get stuck,
which is, let's face it, most of the time,
Autotrader is always on hand and committed to supporting us to get the very best from our package. To find out how they can help you, visit trade.autotrader.co.uk. Now, back to the podcast.
So, James and I are going to run through our favourite stories of the week, and at the end, Tony and Mark get to decide which one of us chose the best ones and who's the winner. Hopefully we don't have a draw, otherwise this is going to be very awkward. I won last week.
You did 4-3, John, on the scoreboard to you.
Yeah, well, I only say that because that means I get to start now, and I'm going to get the stories that we're terrified of talking about, James, out of the way first.
Are you? Well done.
I am, which is, of course, all that's going on with Peter Waddell and his court case in the High Court against Bluebell Cars, which is the owner, fundamentally, of Big Motoring World. So, just a little preface here. Because this is an ongoing court case, it's now day 15 of this court case, I believe. We are not allowed to comment really about what's going on here, but we can say what's been said in court, etc. We can't really reveal the information that's not been said in court. It's all very complicated. So the way that we go through this is going to be a little bit surface level, is it not, James? Would that be a reasonable way of describing how we can talk about this?
I'm looking forward to you doing surface level. Go ahead.
Thank you. Whereas I would like to obviously insert my opinion into some of what's been going on here, but I'm not going to do that. So just bear that in mind as you listen to this. So obviously it's all been going on in the High Court over the last 15 days, as I say. We've had a reporter in the High Court reporting on this, but of course typically we've had them in on a Friday, and we record this podcast at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, so we've missed out on a week's worth of news basically. But there's been some revelations coming out of the court case. I mean, firstly I would say it's been interesting to get an insight as to the culture that existed at Big Motoring World under Peter Waddell's leadership. So there was one particular story we ran last week, which no doubt people will have seen, about some of the, as Peter Waddell calls them, nicknames that he would give to his staff. And I think people can make their own minds up about those. I'm just going to leave that out there. That's one particular thing. I don't want to go into that too much because, you know, in the title of that story is an offensive slur, I would say, which I don't really want to repeat. So that story is on the website if you want to read a bit more about that. The other thing is there was revelations about how Peter Waddell wanted Big Motoring World's, well, what his succession plan would look like, were he to retire or step back from the company a little bit. And evidently he wanted Dash Gupta to take over his role as CEO. Now, I should say, that doesn't necessarily mean that Dash Gupta was actually going to do that. It's just that Peter Waddell wanted Dash Gupta to take on that role, much in the same way that if James retired from this podcast, perhaps he might like, I don't know, Emily Maitlis to take over his job. Doesn't mean Emily Maitlis would come in and host the Car Dealer podcast for us, but you never know. So I thought that was quite interesting. Of course, they went with Lawrence Vaughan in the end, not Dash Gupta. Dash Gupta actually sent us a comment, which he did have conversations about the role, but he chose to pursue the role that he currently has with Hughes Gray and Blackstone. And then, James, you've also touched on, just to hand it over to you, you've touched on a few more things in your Substack, which I'll be honest, I haven't read.
Thanks, John, because I was up at 5 a.m. writing this. So that's really good of you. But no,
I wasn't. So.
I did guess. A very interesting day in court yesterday, which we've had reports of. So I've published that in my Substack today, which I will reveal a little bit of what happened here. So it was Reza Fardad. He is the partner in private equity firm Freshstream. He appeared in the witness stand yesterday, gave his testimony to the High Court, and in that he revealed that they weren't the only bidder for Big Motoring World, which I thought was very interesting. In 2021, French private equity firm Tiki How, I don't know whether I've got that right, John.
Funnily enough, in the transcripts, James, there's a question as to how it's pronounced, but in the transcript it just reads the same, so you can't. There's no way of knowing how it's pronounced.
I'm going to call them TC Capital for the purposes of this podcast. They're named. They were named in the High Court as having sniffed around Big in 2021. They did do due diligence, but those talks came to nothing, and that came up in the High Court because Freshstream paid for some of that due diligence they did on the business. £240,000, no less, to sort of accelerate their own investigations into Big. They also explain how much they paid for the 35% share they bought in Big in April 2022. They paid Peter Waddell £72 million for that 35% share. And they said that was very unusual for a private equity firm, their private equity firm. They told the High Court that normally they go for a majority slice of a business, so they have control. Obviously, in this deal, they didn't, but they had structured this deal in a way that allowed them to acquire a majority share at a later date. So the court heard how the deal had been structured to include what they called significant downside protections, which was designed to cover them if the business underperformed. So Freshstream had step-in rights, which meant it could take greater control of that business if it fell below certain financial targets. This was interesting that this came up in the court. Sort of, we hadn't heard much of this before, and it detailed exactly how they structured this deal and put it together. It also said that Freshstream told the court that they aim for a 1.45, very specific, times return on their investment, and that's what they were aiming for with this big deal. Peter Waddell had pushed for a £200 million valuation for Big during those negotiations. He'd based this on the fact that the business could generate, in his opinion, £20 million EBITDA profit. This came up in the court. And he wanted to have a 10 times valuation for this sale. And that's how they got to this £72 million valuation for 35%. The other interesting bits that came up in this cross-examination yesterday were the fact that they Freshstream carried out some corporate intelligence into Peter Waddell. They looked into him as a person ahead of doing the deal. They used a firm called Kroll. They're a corporate intelligence business hired by private equity like this to investigate their people and the businesses, give them confidence in that investment. But they didn't find anything. They reported back that there was no what do they say here? There was no references to an internal culture of tolerant of discriminatory behaviour of a racial or sexual harassment nature. But then they also looked at the Glassdoor website, which is where former employees can talk about their businesses, where it was alleged that Peter Woodell had been rude, disrespectful to staff. One had even likened the workplace to being on the set of Wolf of Wall Street, but with cars. So a lot of stuff came out yesterday. The full details of what came out yesterday is in my Substack, John. People can find that on the website. Follow the links. But I must say, the trial's continuing at the High Court. Jack is there again today, and we'll be reporting back on it later today. So there'll be more stories, I'm sure, by the time this podcast comes out on the Car Dealer website. But yeah, I mean, there is so much coming out of this court case. It's fascinating to follow, and I know the industry is following it very carefully as well. I don't think we should ask our guests their opinion on this one.
No.
I think we'll let you off.
Safer not to.
I'll move us on, shall I? Shall I move us on? So I would just like to talk a little bit about the sales figures that came out from the SMMT this week. So we've heard that the February sales figures were the best. It was the best February in 22 years. Which I was very surprised about, but I always like to look at the detail, and it's those manufacturers that are doing incredibly well. I mean, Mark mentioned it when he was talking about the start of this year. I'm amazed 13.5% market share for those Chinese brands is incredible. JQ last month was up 179%, Omoda up 147%. And
are these year on year, James? Or
yeah, it's year on year. And I mean, JQ had launched at this time last year, and Omoda had been around a little while. So I think they were 3 or 4 months into their time in the UK. Cherry was very interesting. New arrival. They managed 1,406 sales, which was actually more than Omoda in February. They took a 1.5 market share last month, which is very impressive, isn't it? But it also, when you look at the winners, you also have to look at the losers, don't you? And Honda, I mean, what is going on there? I mean, they are in big trouble, I think. I mean, they dropped nearly 40% in February. They moved to an agency sales model, John, in December. It was one I missed off my Substack last week. And off the back of that, they don't seem to be having the best of times. They sold 874 cars in February, which is not too bad. But when you divvy that up between the 100 dealers they've got, that's less than 9 cars a dealership.
I'll tell you, you're having a worse time though, James.
Go on.
DS.
Oh, go on. How was the DS?
5 cars.
What? 5 cars in the entire month?
5 cars in February, according to this.
I missed
Year
that.
to date, the much more healthy 24.
Are you serious? That is unbelievable. So there are some other shockers in there. DS one, I don't know how I missed that one, but yeah, that is very, very disappointing. Tesla down 37%, Seat down 32%, Nissan down 32%, Jeep down 32%, and Mini down 23%. So those winners are certainly causing some problems for some of those losers. But yeah, fascinated by those. What did you think, Tony? I mean, you know, you're looking at these numbers. You're in the new car game, and what do you make of it?
It's as I said earlier. That's exactly what I was expecting to see, because the Chinese entrants are coming in very enthusiastically into the market, and they're going to have to take some market share from someone. And they're going to be targeting the big boys, aren't they? And I think Fiat was another manufacturer which you know, I'm not having a good time at the moment. So they're going to be going for those brands. Tesla's not a surprise. Obviously, they've had a lot of bad press, haven't they, over the last 12 months or more. And again, the Chinese brands are eating into their market share. I mean, I'd rather represent a niche brand right now than a volume brand that's been doing very well for the last few years, because I think they're the ones who are going to look after over their shoulder more than us. So yeah, but where does it end? Because there's more Chinese brands coming as well. They can't all come in here. Otherwise it won't be worth their while. So, but
you can tell I didn't have a coffee when I wrote my story this morning, because I also missed that about Fiat. But yeah, down 69% with just 188 sales last month. I mean, that is.
I mean, I will say you have to add a bath onto that as well, which is yeah. I mean, they're the same thing. 26,
26, John. Yeah, wow,
about 200, isn't it? What I was just going to say, I'm sure you go to Mark, but I was just going to say the other interesting thing is not all Chinese brands are doing well. So Cherry, Omoda, JQ, all big success. GWM, which just has the Aura Funky Cat or whatever it's called at this point, 7 cars in February.
Ouch.
We've got Skywell at the bottom of the chart, how I've organised it here. 4 cars, but to be fair, they haven't been here very long. What was the other one I just saw? BYD doing well, obviously. But it's XPeng, 22 cars. So not all of them are, XPeng's 22 versus Cherry's 1,000 and whatever it was.
I mean, that GWM one is a worry, isn't it? 7 cars, they've sold only 6 more than Jaguar, and they don't even exist. I mean, it's. I mean, that is painful, isn't it? Mark, what's your take on all this?
The big the stories is one of the big stories is the Chinese. I think there is a response from some of the other manufacturers, isn't there? So you've called out some of the sort of real, like the established ones, the incumbents that have really struggled. On the flip side, good months I think about Jan and Feb together. February's a bit, because it's a bit wobbly, it can get really spiky. You can get weird numbers, but Ford is up by a good chunk. Mercedes-Benz, really good progress year on year. Audi going pretty well year on year. Renault going really well year on year. So I think there's some really good news stories in there. Tony's made a great point. I was thinking about it when you were talking earlier on, Tony, about the bits of the market where brands are going to succeed. I think that's a smart move by Mitsubishi. You've got 2 good products that they know will live and do really well in the segments that they're in. If you've not got sort of standout products in certain parts of the market, then that's where the competition is really difficult, isn't it? Renault's doing pretty well because it's got a couple of really good electric cars that lots of people want, that are really well priced, well spec'd, good cars. So Renault's going to do pretty well. Mercedes-Benz has sort of found its niche a bit more, similar for Audi. Ford is upping its game a bit. So I think some of those brands are going to, they'll find their place. They might not do the volumes that they would have done historically, but they're going to find their place. But I think if you are a brand that hasn't quite got a standout car, then it's going to be hard. One thing I'd say in Honda's defense, by the way, these are the sales figures. Go on to Autotrader and have a look at the Honda ENY1. There are some incredible brand new car offers on the platform. So of all the electric cars listed, new cars on the platform, just this last stat for you, Honda's 0.4 of them are the ENY1. In February, that car, there's about 20 cars, 25 cars, took 4.4% of the leads. So we haven't seen them in the sales yet, but we're going to see those in March. 10 times the conversion on about 20, 25 cars because the offers are bananas. So haven't seen it in Feb, didn't really see it in Jan, but I would expect Honda to have a much better performance in March. And I think that's a little bit, the year might be a little bit like that for some brands.
I won't comment on why I think that is. John, do you want to wedge a story in? I think we should try and wedge a couple more in if we can.
I'll try and wedge one more in, but of course, if you are listening and you're looking for a B segment electric SUV, you know where to go now, which is to Autotrader to the Honda section. Lovely. I'm going to try and this is a bit. I feel I should talk about the FCA and the car finance redress scheme very briefly. I couldn't really get my head around half of this, to be honest. But the fundamental thing is some news from the FCA. They're going to outline their final terms of the motor finance redress scheme, possibly by the end of this month. That's if they're doing a redress scheme, because they're not quite sure. And they've outlined lots of details on how it's all going to work. If they do it, that was basically the crux of this story. It looks like there's going to be this implementation period, which oh my God, I can't really, basically, if you've already submitted all your details to say, I would like some redress for my car finance, there's going to be a period of time, could be 3 months, could be 6 months, depending on when your car finance agreement was, that the car finance company will have to get back to you to say X, Y, Z, or just pay you the money. So they've made some tweaks behind the scenes, things like the car finance company can just pay you directly. They don't have to send you a letter by recorded delivery or something. It's all just a bit waffly and whatever. James, help me. What on earth? Is it happening? Is it not happening?
I've read this story probably 3 or 4 times, still can't work out what they're talking about. They're like the worst tease possible, aren't they? Just come on, get on with it. Tell us what's going on.
Well, they're very about the details, aren't they? Like they were saying, we'll reveal it on a day that's not a day where the markets are open, and they'll do all that sort of stuff, but won't really commit to whether it's happening or not, or whether it will happen by the end of the month. But it might happen by the end of the month. So that's news, or possibly not news. We'll see by the end of the month.
Maybe we have to ban all FCA news until the point they've got some news.
Oh, God.
I mean, that would probably be better. I'm just going to wedge one last story in, John, because I know we're running out of time, but I just want to talk about DXB Auto Investments completing their deal to buy Harwood's JLR and BMW operations in the UK. So this is the new firm, DXB Auto Investments, coming into the UK, the Dubai based. We heard about this a little bit earlier, the back end of last year, that this was in the offing, but this is official confirmation that deal has gone through, and DXB Auto Investments have taken over those Harwood's businesses. Now, we know Harwood's has had a tough time over the last few years. We're reporting on that at length in Car Dealer magazine and talked about it on this podcast. And this sees a season end to a lot of those dealerships in Harwood's hands and moving on into DXB's hands. Now, I know they've been interested in the market in the UK for quite some time, this Dubai-based investment firm, and it'll be interesting to see how they get on. I'm fascinated to see a new entrant and whether they're going to try and build this into a much bigger group. Don't know. We will see. But yeah, interesting to see that one finally completed. But yes, John, I commend that to the house as my last story.
Very good. Okay, well, I'm tempted to go to Mark and Tony for comment on that, but I think we're slightly running out of time, so I might just have to wrap it up. So I'm going to ask first, Tony, before we ask for your verdict, are there any stories you think we should have talked about this week but we haven't?
No, I think you've covered everything that's happened really this week. The Peter Waddell story, that's obviously very, very interesting because it's gossip, isn't it, really? The FCA is a story that's a non-story, I think. And do DXB know something about Jaguar that the rest of the world don't know yet? For them to want to buy Harwood's, is there something that...
Maybe they bought that one in February.
Yeah.
Maybe that's...
One lonely F-Pace somewhere.
Yeah.
Lovely. I shall go to Mark. Mark, this is going very well. Mark, are there any stories you think we should have covered but we haven't?
I think that was a comprehensive piece of news coverage.
Comprehensive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
You're very kind. Right, so I'm now going to ask for verdicts. Oh God, Tony, what's your story of the week then?
Always a gossip. The Waddell story.
Lovely, that's one for me. And Mark?
I'm going DXB.
Ooh.
Interested to see where that goes.
Well, that's 1-1, John. So we'll just have to. I'm going to have to give you one. That's 5, and I'm going to take one. It's 4. So it's 5-4, John. On the
that's
scoreboard.
fine. Okay, so next week we'll just both start talking at the same time,
like normal.
Exactly. Well, on that very collegiate note, it's time to end the podcast. All that's left for me to say is thank you to Tony for coming on today. It's been great to talk to you and talk about your business. And we haven't talked about Subaru that much, which is very disappointing. But, I'm sure we'll have you on again to go through the positives and negatives of the Outback and the Forester.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Tony.
And thank you as well to Mark. It's been great to have you on and get your insight on what's going on in the used and new car market.
Thank you.
Nice to see you, Mark. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you as well to James for getting up at 5 a.m. and writing things on his subscriber-only Substack. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode, would you believe? So make sure to subscribe so you can be notified when that goes live. If you want to come along to our conference, we're going to get this in first. Do head to cardealerlive.co.uk because it's just under 2 weeks away now and tickets are going to sell out at some stage. The room is only so big. If you want to check out the stories we mentioned today, take a look in the show notes below or head to cardealermagazine.co.uk. Thanks for listening and goodbye.